1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
All right, we're setting up the pins, ready to knock them down.
Nice, Jamie. Way to come through with that.
That's yeah. It is Detroit City of Champions. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
And talking about 1935, the amazing stories, the amazing championships.
We're still going on into episode 97, rounding the horn towards 100.
97, yeah, that's great.
Jeez, we're almost at 100.
I know. It's good. It's and there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
Last episode, we talked all about the Stroh's Brewing Company, the history of Stroh's, and we sat here and I drank Stroh's. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it was awesome. We were talking about beer and drinking. I was talking about how much I want to get that flame roasted.
Yeah. But we talked about, because the reason we're talking about Stroh's beer, because it's a Detroit thing. And
we're setting it up. We were setting it up for something. We were alluding to. We were foreshadowing.
Yep. After the big three, coming in at number 13 is the Stroh's bowling team.
Stroh's bowling team.
Yeah, the Stroh's bowling team.
A legendary aggregation.
Aggregation.
Yeah.
I like that.
Thanks. I haven't used it in a long time, but it does seem to fit for this occasion.
Yeah, I was I told some girls they were regaled into doing something, and
it's a good word too.
But it's not. It wasn't the right word.
Why not? I like it.
It's regulated. It's
regaled is like sort of like recognized and celebrated.
Yeah. That's not what I meant.
Oh, well, you're trying to say something negative or something?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then it was a terrible usage.
Yeah,
of the word. I take everything back that I just said.
Yeah. I was using words wrong earlier, but I like that an aggregated team. That's
aggregation.
Yeah, an aggregation. So because it's a team. It says how many guys are involved in this? 5, 6?
5.
Okay.
Well, they had a manager too. Number 6 total.
All right. And so it's sponsored by Stroh's.
Yeah, so that's
Bohemian Beer.
Yeah, so this is that was we were going to talk about the Stroh's bowling team, so that's why we were talking about Stroh's last week, and just setting up this, like I say, this is this legendary squad, and it's only like before I do the show, usually I do me, I like to get all my notes down and get all my research down, crystallize what we're going to talk about, kind of refresh my memory for something that I wrote like 6-7 years ago. And so I like to do a little quick Google search and look around and check out what's out there in the internet to see what what kind of updated stuff. And I find basically every episode I find something new, that I didn't even see when I was writing the book, which is always really interesting. But one of the disappointing things about this is that there's like nothing out there on this team.
There's so many.
There's nothing.
We say that we're a broken record. We say that over and over.
It's crazy. There's I'm looking around and I did find a picture that we have included. I have a picture of the 5 guys.
Yeah.
The 5 plus their manager, for the Stroh's bowling team. But there is I think there was a Detroit News article that just gives it a little it more talks about how Detroit became this the big bowling capital in the 1950s and. I think it maybe mentions them at the beginning, and but certainly no details.
Right.
No details. Maybe a mention of the headliner, Joe Norris, but it's crazy. I'm sitting there looking at this stuff going, there's nothing.
So it's
right here. This book, my book is it. I got all kinds of pictures and background, like the stuff we're going to be talking about in this show right now. This is coming straight out of the book.
You're going way deeper than anybody else ever did.
No, that's what I'm trying to say. Like the stuff I've got, I'm like, I look at this Stroh's bowling team, from the stuff I found, and I'm like, these guys are legends. And wait till you see. I think that the viewer at home will conclude with that analysis is that these guys are absolute legends, and there's nothing. I mean, maybe it's something I'm already familiar with because I'm sitting here saying this is a forgotten season. The players are forgotten. The stuff is forgotten. And every once in a while, it's like I have to be reminded of something I already say like every week and make analogies in 1,000 different ways. Like this story is so forgotten. This nobody knows about this. The entire point of the show is that it's a forgotten story, and I'm like shocked when I can't find anything about something I consider to be like an amazing thing.
Pretty dang cool, yeah.
And I'm like, where's the Strohs? And I'm like, oh, that's right. It's forgotten, just like everything else.
That's it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I just, it kind of dawned on me today. I'm like, oh my God, this story, there's nothing there. I'm like, that's because there isn't nothing in there. That's why this stuff is so important. And that's why the stuff we're doing is important. So, anyways, it was just kind of, it was a weird thing. So I'm like, I had to be reminded of, like I say, of something that, because like I say, I have such a profound respect for this Stroh's ball. I mean, this is like these guys are headliners of this season.
Yeah.
And it's staggering that there's not stuff there. So yeah, that's where we're at. We're jumping into these guys, and it really starts with, I already mentioned his name, which is Joe Norris. And Joe Norris, I've just got to say this, Joe Norris is a name he is basically a Ty Cobb-like figure in the world of bowling. This guy is one of the greatest bowlers of all time. He's in the bowling. He's in the international. They call it the what is it? The exact name of it. It is because I've got his little Hall of Fame bio right here. He's in the United States Bowling Congress Hall of Fame. I mean, this guy is an absolute legend.
All right, but before we dive into Joe Norris,
it starts with him because he's the one that founds the team. He creates the team.
Yeah. But so Stroh's Brewery was a big part of sponsoring bowling. Joe Norris is a big part of starting this team. And just looking at the impact again. That we'll get to this after we talk about this, because Detroit is kind of known as the bowling capital of the world.
Yeah, it began with this. That's what I'm trying to say.
And it starts with
why
these guys. Why is Detroit the bowling capital of the world? Why is it so? 1935. You just want to scream it to the rooftops, right?
Yeah, so because these guys, because this. I read somewhere, I don't have the exact source in here from where I read it, and because information on this whole era of bowling and all this stuff is just not readily available, even on the websites for the Bowling Congress, it's so limited.
Yeah,
their history is like, bowling was started in 1895. It was the first time that the rules were laid down. It was like immigrants came over from Germany and Norway, and they like to play bowls, and they changed the rules a little bit for American style, and then the American Bowling Congress was founded, and they played their first international championship in 1901. And then they're like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's a very general overall summary. There's no depth as far as like, who were the first stars? What was some of the problems? Like, we were talking about with Walter Hagen, where, during World War I, they created the idea of the paid gallery spectator, then there was all these nuances where it's just, I didn't see much.
Yeah.
There's just not much of a cohesive history. I mean, maybe because bowling's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's because there's different, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say it's fragmented because they had the ABC, the American Bowling Congress, which was which was the official, they're the ones that define the rules of the game. They set up a national, sort of a ranking system and championship model. Like they had all the structure for the establishment of a proper history of their game.
Yeah.
But it's like they don't have any historians really that are there to go into any depth as far as because this guy should be there.
Yeah.
Joe Norris has got a page. He's got a mention on here, but and we're going to read it. And he talks about how great he is. But it does, he talks about, it's got his blah, blah, blah. Joe Norris did this and he did that and he did this, but there's no this is, from what I understand, I read about it somewhere. I don't even have the reference, but from what I read back when I was doing this, was Stroh's was the first beer company to sponsor a bowling team.
Yeah. That's
the way that I understood the story. If I'm wrong and somebody finds it contrary, I will change that. But I read somewhere, and I can't verify where I have it at, but I actually have it in the book. I just it said so it. I read it somewhere. I think I read it in an article. But anyways, from where I actually wrote it into the book, that the Stroh's bowling team was Stroh's was the first beer company to sponsor a bowling team that they saw. They saw this, and the reason why was because of Joe Norris. Joe Norris was a young rising star in the world of in Detroit, which was becoming like a bowling mecca. And there's all like, we're going to read an article here in a minute that talks about just how big into bowling Detroit was, in the 20s and 30s, because like these guys are these guys are serious bowlers. This isn't like this is the origin of bowling, and this is some guy that Joe Norris, he was just kind of the best of an era where nobody, the first guy to ever bowl or something, No, they wait till you hear this article. They're like, there is fierce competitions. These people are trading partners and stuff because they want to get to like higher and higher levels with like a teammate and stuff. And then he got to the point where there was 5 guys that he had basically identified as being these like elite bowlers in Detroit. And so he went to Stroh's and said, hey, how would you like to sponsor this team? We'll be the Stroh's bowling team. And, we'll bowl underneath your banner. We're going to go to the freaking national championships. And then it's going to be Stroh's bowling team that wins. And, spoiler alert, they do. But Joe Norris, the guy, and man, I'm telling you, like, this guy is like a Ty Cobb type figure. And it's I'm looking forward to reading this article and going a little more depth, but it's just crazy. Like it's just crazy that that like this show that we're putting out there is going to be like it. I mean, I didn't do a YouTube search. Maybe there's a clip on there or anything, but anyways, it's So
you got Joe upstairs. So where did you come across when you were doing your research for this? Where did the bowling team catch your attention?
I think it was in the.
Is it on the City of Champions?
I think
Champion Day page. Is it on the?
It's not on the.
Not on Champion Day paper.
Not in the newspaper. Not in the City of Champions newspaper.
All right, so it's not in the.
No, but I read it. I believe it was on the in the first book. I believe they mentioned the Stroh's bowling team in the articles about Champions Day when they were listing off all the different championships.
Okay. Yeah, because
I believe there's a mention in the first book, but I just went into like more depth on it. And every time, of course, that I spotted an article, I collected it and came up with a few pretty good ones.
Yeah.
And so I suppose without any further ado, I'll read this article.
All right, is this about Chuck Norris up here?
Yeah, Chuck. A little known fact is Chuck Norris was named after Joe Norris because Joe Norris was the first badass.
Not true.
That's not true. I made that
but
up.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a good
You
story.
wish it was true.
Yeah.
All right, but Joe Norris.
Joe Norris.
All right, what do we know about Joe?
So we're actually going to talk about we'll get back to Joe Norris because we're going to kind of go over his entire career. But I want to. So I'm just going to talk about the bowling team overall first because I've got this, like I say, this tremendous article that we're going to read. It's got a little length to it, but it's good. It's good because it kind of tells their overall story and where they're at for this year. So this article comes out. It was Detroit Times, and it was written by Harold Call. And the date was December 23rd, 1934. You can actually put the article up on the screen because this is the article I'm reading off of. This I actually was lucky. This article was really well preserved in the Detroit Times. So I got a really clean screenshot. That's directly off microfilm.
Wow.
And so the text is actually in the book. You can actually I have it typed into the book, but you can actually read the text off of the microfilm image in the book, so you can read this for yourself. So that's what the article looks like.
Right.
And so it shows the 5 guys on the page, and the article header is Stroh champions got start as pin boys. And again, this is a couple days before Christmas in 1934. So from Pinnaroos to world's champions. That in brief tells the story of this Stroh team, holder of the American Bowling Congress International World's Match Game titles. In golf, you find most of your leading players at one time carried somebody's bag of clubs in the role of a caddy. So it is in bowling. Most of your top-notchers were once pin boys. Joe Norris, Wally Reppenhagen, Phil Bauman, Cass Greiger, and Freddie Gardella all served time perspiring in the pits as they spotted or racked pins before they hit the big time in bowling. Today, as a team, they are recognized as the class of the nation. During the short space of 2 seasons, this Stroh outfit has an amazing record. For a starter, there are 3 games over 3,500, 8 over 3,400, 15 over 3,300, 25 over 3,200. Gardella has bowled 14 games of 300, Bauman 12, Reppenhagen 6, Norris 5, and Greiger 4. Those are 300 games. It's games of 300. I'll read that again. These are 300. I'm not going to read the totals.
Yeah.
But for the amateur out there like myself in bowling, I know what a 300 game is, which is a perfect game.
It's a perfect game, yeah.
And so I'll read that again. These are the 5 guys, and they said right here in 2 seasons. In 2 seasons, Gardella has 14 games of 300. Bauman 12, Reppenhagen 6, Norris 5, and Greiger 4. And so there is no team anywhere to match last season's record. In addition to winning the ABC and International five men against teams from Finland, Germany, and Canada, this team is state match game title holder, holds the state league 3-game and single game marks of 34-81 and 12-51, and is champion of the Class A division of the Detroit Times tournament, a crown it will defend January 12th. So just to refresh that again, just to show all the different titles they've won. It's this. So it says, in addition to winning the ABC championship and international 5 men against teams from Finland, Germany, and Canada, the team has won state match game title holder, state league 3-game, and single game marks, and is champion of the Class A division of the Detroit Times. They've won national, state, multiple state championships, and the city championship, of course.
Oh yeah,
won everything.
Yeah.
All events championships seem to be the dish for Reppenhagen. He not only won the ABC, but the state Elks, and city Lutheran, and just missed the top in the city tournament. Norris won the international all events and paired with Freddie Breckel to cop the state Elks doubles. Norris and Greiger are the state's undefeated match game doubles champions. Bauman and Greiger won the national KFC doubles, and the former took the all events. These guys, they have every title that there is.
Locked up.
Individual, doubles, and team. They have everything. It is no wonder the Board of Governors of the National Bowling Proprietors Association of America recognized this Stroh bunch as the world's match game champion. World champions. Norris, the handsome young captain, and Greiger are the youngest members of the Stroh 5. Both are 26 years of age, Joe starting as a pin boy at the age of 17 at Fairview Recreation. Cass began setting pins for Joe Szymanski at the same age. During the 9 years he has bowled, Norris has won 40 medals and trophies. Following 2 years as a member of the Fairview Recreation 5, Norris rolled with Briggs one season. Then he joined Palace Recreation, which astounded the bowling world by grabbing the world's match game title from the Dominic DeVito's strong Duffy Florals of Chicago in 1928-29. I'll read that because that was a tongue twister. Following 2 years as a member of the Fairview Recreation 5, Norris rolled with Briggs one season. Then he joined Palace Recreation, which astounded the bowling world by grabbing the world's match game title from Dominic DeVito's strong Duffy Florals of Chicago in 28-29. So he won a national championship then with this other team.
Jeez.
So Ernie Hartman, Reppenhagen, Johnny Crimmins, Bill North, and Joe Scribner were the other members. This team remained intact for the 1929-30 season, but broke up the following year with Bauman and Greiger being added to Norris, Reppenhagen, and Crimmins. It was as Shane Trombley, the world's match game championship, shifted to the Canfield Oils of Cleveland, headed by Skang Mercurio by a margin of 127 pins. After that, several teams claimed the world's match game title, and this season, when the National Bowling Proprietors went about declaring a champion, they decided on Stroh because it had won the ABC and international laurels. From Shane Trombley, the team went under Bill Young's wing as Coca-Cola's in 1930-31. During the middle of the season, Gardella replaced Crimmins in the lineup, and the same 5 were together as Stroh's last season. Greiger rolled with Maxwell and Detroit Leland before he joined Norris. Rep the veteran. So Reppenhagen is the veteran of the team. He has been in major competition for 18 years. He says he is 37 years old, but Johnny Canton, the Clark Gable of our composing room, differs with him. John claims he was wearing a velvet suit when Wally put on his first long strides. And he further states if Wally gets away with this one, Burt Allen will be telling the world he is only 25. Gardella, 39 years old, so he changed the name in the paper based on his own psyching himself up, and he started off the art. So anyways, Gardella, 39 years old, has been bowling for 22 years, but it was not until 26-27, and until 1926-27 he hooked up with a major team, that being Gable Risdon. Cadillac, Krakow, Risdon, and Borden's followed before he switched to the present outfit. Bauman, 32, has been shooting for 12 years. LaHue, Canavan, Norge, and Detroit Leland being the other teams before he became affiliated with Shane Trombley. I don't have any idea what they're talking about with all that. It's a bit of a brain scramble. But what they're saying is with that, the important little bit about the end there is like these guys are joining different squads and building like little super teams and moving on to bet tougher and tougher groups until they got to the point where they're like this like Fab Five was assembled for Stroh's, and these guys were world championships in 34, and of course they carried, so they didn't win the championship in 35. They won it at the tail end of 34.
It was in December.
It was in December
22nd or something.
Yes,
like that.
and so they carried that title through the year, and would end up going to represent. They had an exhibition event in Berlin for the 1936 Olympics, and the Stroh's team was there as the American team representative in that. So they were at the 1936 Olympics. The Stroh's team. So from this block of time, from 34 through that Olympics of 36. So at the very least, they carried this championship all the way through 1935 until the next ABC championship. I didn't see any evidence that they won it in 35.
Yeah, well, it says they won the Open Championship in 34.
Yes.
And then national championships 5 times between 35 and 45.
That's what I'm saying. So they were a dominant presence for all that time, but specifically if they had only won if they won like 33 and carried it through 34, they've just sort of missed the cut. They'd be sort of an honorable mention, but they didn't. They won it at the tail end of 34, and because these championships are at the end of the year like this, then they carried this championship through. So when the Tigers are winning the World Series, these guys were probably getting ready for the 35 rematch with these other teams.
Right.
And I don't have I thought I saw a different team won it in actually 35, carrying it 36. I didn't, it's been like, I was looking it up on here, but even the website doesn't even say who won it in 35. So that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of lack of information. They don't even talk about it. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I looked it up all over the place because I wanted to say, well, they lost it on this day in 35, but at the very least, when the Tigers are headed to win their World Series in October, these guys would have still had that championship. They would have still been the champions of the world. Thus, they're included in this echelon of champions. So,
all right, I'll give it to them.
I'll give it to them too. I wrote about him in the book.
Heck yeah!
It is Stroh's bowling champions, man. Bowling team. These guys are all, and as you said, they won 5 more over the next 10 years.
Yeah,
they went to the Olympics in 36 as the representatives of America. I mean, these guys are there,
kind of wearing the crown.
Hell yeah,
kind of well deserved.
Yeah,
and wearing the crown. Yeah, it's interesting. You can't find anything about the Open Championship.
If anybody out there, Chris, if any of you guys out there finds any, you guys, Chris in particular, been great at finding some
great factoids. Yeah,
fantastic stuff. In fact, we might be even adding a new champion here to talk about. He found one.
Yeah.
So we might be expanding. I think we're expanding to 34.
Uh-oh.
But
you have to redesign the T-shirt.
I know. We may have to. Cop everything.
One more point on the star on the crest.
So Chris, if you find anything on the Strohs that we're not going to mention or anything that you see might be interesting.
So they called them the article. They called them the Pin Boys. Is that what?
Well, they said because they got it was Pin Boys, as in they set up they didn't have the electronic pin set up. So they'd have a little pin monkey down at the end of the lane setting the pins up for the guys after they knocked them down.
Yeah.
So they probably got paid 10 cents or whatever an hour to set the pins up.
That had to be dangerous.
Yeah, probably.
With the pins flying.
Probably, yeah. Probably be kind of fun too.
Yeah, I guess. And then there's
so they're kind of like caddies in golf, They start like Walter Hagen started off as a caddy. These guys start off working the pins at the end of an alley.
So bowling has never been an Olympic event.
Yeah, not to my knowledge, no.
But they did have it as an exhibition
in 1936 in Berlin.
And so they were there. And
so that's an image from the venue.
If you're watching along on YouTube or Facebook, or if not, if you're listening,
the venue,
Google it, or pick up the City of Champions book.
Yeah, and if you
is that in the City of Champions book?
No, I found this is another image I found off and I sourced it on the site there. I can't see it from here, but But because there was a guy that did have some mention of he was talking about some other stuff, but it was the same. He was talking about the bowling in that 36 Olympics. But in this
Top End Sports,
topendsports.com. Yeah. So but in the picture, I guess Hitler was at this particular day, and they're all saluting him. All the crowd is. They all got their hands up. Yeah. So.
It's crazy like that.
We're going to get to a great article when we talk about fencing, where Kathleen Hughes Hallett was actually at. I've got a great story from the 1936 Olympics. She was right in the vortex, and there's going to be she accidentally found herself in the middle of a Hitler speech, and she'd never even heard of Hitler.
Oh,
she was like, just thought she was going to some function.
Yeah,
and everybody's all nice to her, and everything's it's like just hanging out. And then Hitler walked.
That's
out
propaganda.
insane.
Some of the American athletes. They want to be here for this. It's like, and they're like, she's like,
no, a German soldier. She was being toured around the city by a handsome German officer. This lady is the most beautiful.
He's like, I got to stop off and do a thing. You want to come with me?
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
She took her to this event. That's his thing.
Nine.
Yeah, she didn't know. I have this great quote from her, and she talks about it. She's like,
that's coming up.
That's going to be really. It's going to be interesting. So,
any of these images that I didn't share that we need to look at?
No, this is
this is the bowling
at
the Olympics. If you're watching along, if not, it's worth.
If you want to bring it back to
that, it's pretty fascinating.
It is, but what's interesting too is these venues. It's like a coliseum type of a bowling alley. It's not like I always think of a bowling alley for like the big show is.
How many lanes do you think are there?
I don't know. There's a ton. There.
How many? What the biggest bowling alley in the United States? How many lanes do you think they have?
50, 100,
90.
Oh no, that's.
Do you know where it is?
No. Oh, is it down at Detroit Majestic?
Thunderbird Lanes? No, it's not the Majestic. It's the Thunderbirds is it Allen Park? Thunderbird Lanes in Allen Park.
Huh, that's the biggest?
It is the largest bowling center in the United States. Opened in 1962. This is all coming off of Sports Planning Guide. And it's 90 lanes along with an arena, it's a big complex with all kinds of stuff in it. The Garden Bowl at the Majestic is one of the 10 oldest.
10. I read it was in the
it's
top
like the
two.
third.
It's number two. I read.
There's
one in Milwaukee that's older.
Yeah, there's one that's like a 1 lane thing.
But they count as older. It's like that's the only thing that's like the older.
Yeah, and then there's one that is where's the oldest?
Oh, you mean the very first one is like 1 lane?
Yeah,
because the one in Milwaukee, they said it's like because I read articles that said that the Majestic is like the second oldest.
Yeah,
or I mean it's the second oldest like commercial one or something like that. I think that's how they designated it. I didn't realize there was one that wasn't commercial.
I was one of the first DJs there at Rock and Bowl.
Oh, really? When they opened up the Majestic?
When they started doing they started doing Rock and Bowl. Cool. Yeah, that was me. Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a 2-lane bowling alley in the Polish district, and it's the Holler House.
Yeah, the Holler House. Yeah,
2 lanes.
That's what I read. Yeah,
1908.
It's only 2 weak lanes. Dude,
2 lanes.
Come on.
Yeah.
Majestic's like 30 lanes.
I know. Roseland Cottage has 1 lane. It's in Woodstock.
Those are like historical landmark type alleys. The Majestic is a fully functional. There's a bar. There's a
1913. I know. I just had drinks there before we went to see.
It's like a fully operational bowling alley. They have bands that play up. You go upstairs and they have a concert stage.
At least 16 lanes, depending on.
Is it 16?
If 16 plus.
Oh, okay.
Depending on what configuration they're going with. Do you know that the Majestic Theater is where Houdini took his fatal punch?
No, I didn't know that.
There used to be this big mural on the wall in the theater. It was like literally it was like 30 feet tall. It was like on the left-hand side of the stage was a big thing, Houdini with the chains on and his underpants. That it was a big mural of that because so Houdini had a thing that he said he could take a punch from anybody, any place, anytime, anywhere. And the thing was, he was like he wasn't like a super buff guy or anything, but he had so much muscular control that he could contract his muscles, and then he could take a punch and he could weather a punch. So anyway, this big old Michigan football player comes to the Majestic for his show, goes backstage, and he goes, "Hey, Houdini," and he turns around and just cracks him.
And he wasn't waiting for it.
He wasn't ready for it. And this was like before his show. And so he went on and he had a difficult time completing his performance that night, and complications from that punch.
Really? I think I have heard that story before, but not
is what had done him in.
Yeah, but you said it really well. I didn't realize it was a Michigan football player either, but it makes sense. Yeah.
So that's what did Houdini in there at the Majestic. So
man, that guy's a legend. Houdini.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, it's haunted. Houdini's ghost is here.
And he told his wife that because he was super interested in the occult and about communicating from the afterlife.
He goes, if it's possible, I will get back to you.
And he said he gave her a certain word. Certain thing. He said, if it's me, I'll give you a certain word. So she spent the rest of her days going to psychics, trying to find, listening for the secret word. And from my understanding, she never heard it. That's that nobody ever was able to.
Is that how Pee Wee's Playhouse got started?
I don't probably not. I think it's a pretty big leap towards that. Even though I used to watch the hell out of that show, and
they would have a word of the day.
I used to watch it all the time.
Every time Houdini came to,
I was a huge Pee Wee Herman fan. No, I don't think that's where they got it.
No, that's not where that came from.
I think it's a monument, too little bit too big of a leap from that story to that, but I'll allow it for this episode. I won't give you too much crap.
Dan was checking in and confirmed that yes, the largest bowling Thunderbird Lanes.
What's up, Dan? We're good to have you, bro.
And that's where they and again, 1935 and the bowling. It was the precipice for everything wonderful about Detroit. And I think you might be a little young for it, but there was.
I grew up in Kalamazoo anyway, so I wasn't even out here.
Well, there you go. But a very important part of my childhood. Was the TV show Bowling for Dollars.
Oh, yeah, I never saw that.
No, oh, my God. So, Bowling for Dollars.
I've heard of it.
Bob Allison and Bowling for Dollars. And that was on in the 70s. It started out in Ohio and then came here in 74 and ran through. They tried to do a revival in like 2013, and they did the revival out at the largest bowling center, Thunderbird Lanes, out in Allen Park.
Well, I just think it's awesome. I didn't realize those other two places that were older than the Majestic were like 1 or 2 lane bowling alleys. They're like novelty, like historical things. In the freaking Majestic, it's a fully operational alley. You go in there and it's like a party spot. Man. And there's like all these people bowling, glow balls, and all this stuff. And you're like, you don't even know that it's like the oldest place. It's just a commercial bowl. It's like a bowling alley in the city at in a kind of a vintage building.
The Zania brothers rocking it right.
That's awesome. I'm actually kind of proud of that place, man. That's awesome.
Is it Dave and
I think that's what it is.
Dave Zania and the other brother.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that
Joe
familiar
or
with
Dan?
it. I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with it.
I know.
There's another vintage.
The Zania
lane.
boys are good boys though.
There's another super vintage lane in the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. Have you've been there, right? Mm-hmm. That lane down. Have you seen those bowling alleys there?
No, I don't know if I've
It's
seen
only
it.
like a 2 or 3 lane alley,
right.
but that place that's got
that vintage vibe.
But the yacht club is freaking vintage as you get. I mean, it's like early 1900s, 1920s or something. They didn't like just recently add that. That place that thing was sculpted into that building.
So, but again, it's like how 1935 shaped. Detroit. And
I'll get into Norris. Let me read Norris's credentials because I want to build upon Norris because Norris was a major reason why they evolved. Because it's a great point. We're going to get to it.
Chris said in 35 the champion of it was a Wolf Tire Service from Niagara Falls.
Wolf Tire Service.
Niagara Falls.
Dang.
Slowly I turn, step by step.
So. Okay, thanks, Chris. We appreciate you.
Is.
I don't even know where you found that because I was looking all over the place. For that, and I couldn't find it anywhere. But anyways,
yes, Jeeves.
Yeah. Chris has got it locked down, man. So I knew we just asked. We figured we'd get an answer.
Ask Jeeves, ask Chris, something like that.
So I'm going to read about Norris real quick because this guy is such a beast, man.
All right.
Okay. So my little words here. On a team of all-stars, Joe Norris was a superstar and one of the greatest legends of the sport. He set a record at 18 years old as the youngest to bowl a 300 game and also set the ABC record at 86 years old for the oldest man to bowl 300.
Perfect game, yeah.
Perfect game. So he was the youngest to bowl a perfect game and
he was
oldest.
Nice.
And the oldest, 86 years old.
Nice way to book that, Joe.
Yeah. In between, he bowled 11 more complete games, 8 games of 299, 2 298s, 1 297, and 1 296. He was voted into the following halls of fame. I had to list them
because there's so many
so many halls of fames. American Bowling Congress, Detroit City Hall of Fame, Michigan State Hall of Fame, Sportsman's, Southern California, and San Diego Bowling Hall of Fames. His influence on Detroit was far-reaching and directly, and this is what I want to get to, directly helped further the career of the legendary Eddie Double 300 Lubanski. But I want to read also now, jump from there over, as like I say, those are all his like 300 games. But here is, this is right off of the actual. See that it changed from ABC, the American Bowling Congress. It morphed into what's now the United States Bowling Congress. They basically changed. They integrated, I think, with the women's bowling league, and then they changed their name to United States Bowling Congress. So Joe Norris is a Hall of Famer with that. This is one of the many Hall of Fames. I'm reading his directly off the website for his little bio. So this is what they say. He inducted in 1954. Norris, still an active bowler at 92, became the third person in USBC Open Championship history to knock down 100,000 pins on March 12, 1986. He set the record for all-time pinfall on March 10th, 1992, and 123,770 pins in his final appearance in the year 2000. Norris averaged 193 for 71 Open Championship events, tied for the most years of participation in tournament history. On December 14th, 1994, he became the oldest person with a 300 game at age 86, a record that stood for more than 4 years. Norris, who had become well known through his bowling feats in Detroit, started on the road to superstardom when he organized the Stroh's beer team in 1933. Under his captaincy, the Strohs won the 1934 Open Championship team title and also won the National Match Championship game 5 times between, as you mentioned, 34 and 45. He also competed in the international exhibition before the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, Germany. So the guy's a freaking beast.
So he was around till 2001.
Yeah, the guy's 92 years old.
Knocking him down.
Still active at 92. So
he passed at 93.
And I think when they're talking about 100,000 pins on March 2nd, 12th, 86, I think they're talking about for 1 year.
No.
Well, I don't know. Is it? Well, okay. Oh, you're okay. So he set the record for all-time pinfall on March 1992 and 123,770 pins in his final appearance in 2000. Okay, so what they're saying is, so he said it. He just kept on breaking the record or something like that. That's what
his overall championship. He bowled in 71 championship events.
Jeez,
and his average was 193.
Jeez,
he's a monster.
That's what I'm saying. The guy was and he's 86 when he bowled. Could you imagine seeing that guy?
Right.
You're at an event and the guy's 86 years old and he hits a 300 game. Where's the video footage of that? That should be out there. It's an somewhere. 86. Come on. There's nobody that filmed Joe Norris bowling at 86 years. If somebody can find that footage, you're getting a Iffy the Dopester pin. We're giving you a pin. We're giving away gifts. I want to see that.
Gifts,
I want to see how excited, dude. You know how freaking
I'm excited about it.
You know how amazing that would be if to watch Joe Norris at 86 years old bowling a 300 game. Imagine if you're there watching that. You'd be like, "Holy crap!" But anyways. This is the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only was he fantastic in this year,
right?
But this guy,
guy
went on till the 2000s bowling. So his longevity is astonishing as well. Yeah. And so one of the things that I mentioned here in the little quote right there was the Eddie Lubanski thing, and I've talked to a guy who wrote the book on it. There's a guy that wrote the book on Eddie Lubanski. Del Reddy is the name, I believe, was that we were looking up on the name of the book, and I talked to him briefly on the phone, and I believe he sent me. I believe I have a copy of his book too. That's where I got some of this information here, actually, if I remember correctly. But anyways, what ended up happening. And this was because the guy who wrote that book, the book on because Eddie Lubanski was a superstar.
Right.
Have you ever heard the name?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Eddie Lubanski was a beast. Like he was like the 50s. Like he was kind of like, whereas this guy was like the Ty Cobb. Eddie Lubanski was like the Gordie Howe.
Favorite polka albums were his.
Oh, really?
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks a lot. I thought I was getting excited for a second. Just freaking let me down. No, but Eddie
That's the Big
Lubansky.
Lebowski. Yeah,
Eddie
that's
Lubansky.
different.
Yeah, I love that movie. The Big Lebowski.
We should be
That's
drinking
awesome.
White Russians.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I'm good. I had that phase a long time ago. I'm on the liquor. I'm on the hard stuff now. But but Eddie Lubansky in the 50s was like Gordie Howe. He was like that equivalent for bowling. Like, whereas this guy was like Ty Cobb, like the early 1900s. You know, Lubansky was the 50s and 60s version. Like, he was like the star of bowling in Detroit for them. He was like, and he was a superstar. He was an absolute beast. So I think they called him Double 300. You look him up, you're probably going to find some pretty good information on him because the guy was a star. The guy was, he was. I think it's a Double 300 because I think he had 302 games in the same day or something like that. I mean, he had a couple in a row or something. But anyways, but Lubansky, what got his start on the Stroh's bowling team. I believe in the early 50s, he was like, because by the early 50s, the Stroh's bowling team had become the all-star aggregation.
Right.
That if you were good enough to get on that team, they didn't just end with these 5 guys, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Joe Norris started something with this Stroh's bowling team. The team was amazing. Right, it was the legends of this area. Bowling was already big, but these guys were such a legendary presence in Detroit that they set the bar high, and then bowling got huge. Right.
Well, and that's the thing. It's again Detroit creating the culture of America.
100%, and they created this
cars,
this
music.
This beer-sponsored bowling team, Stroh's. And the fact is, just think about how awesome that is, that you've got Stroh's, which is, and this is why I'm glad we covered Stroh's on the last episode, because Stroh's was this iconic Detroit cultural, it was a product of Detroit. That was literally, that Stroh's went back to the 1850, right? That thing was rooted as, that beer, the roots of that company and that beer go back to the very origin of Detroit. I mean, my God, you're talking about 1850. This is the earliest days. And so, I think, what, did Michigan become a state in 1836 or something? It was like 14 years. Look it up for me so I don't look like an idiot. 32 or 30 early on. It wasn't that far distant from when Bernard Stroh arrived to step
37,
18, so 13 years after Michigan becomes a state, Stroh's is founded. Stroh's is founded. Bernard Stroh arrived with $200 in a suitcase.
That was 6 years after my house was built.
Oh, well, yeah, Jamie's got the oldest, coolest house you've ever seen in your
1831.
life. 1830. It was built before Michigan was even a state.
1831.
I can't even, your
My
house
is
amazing.
Is built in 1831.
Your house is amazing. I forgot it was that old. That house is amazing. But anyways, the beer company its roots are in the deepest anchor. I mean, it is as old as Detroit in essence. And so that being the case, you have this iconic company and now you have this team which has raised the bar to a level that is, and it's paired up with this, with this company. That's what I'm saying. Like the two were like, were one, you know what I mean? Like Stroh's in the bowling this was a perfect, harmony with this team.
Oh, yeah.
And so that being said, like you can imagine all these kids growing up that were like looking up at the Stroh's bowling team all the way through, not just this one team, but as the names changed, the faces changed, the different players got on a team, like the team kept rolling on as this elite, high caliber bowling squad. And that's where Eddie Lubansky was on the Stroh's bowling team. And then he broke off and did his own thing as like an independent professional. And then other players came behind. But like I say, in the 50s and 60s, Detroit, from my understanding, there's all kinds of articles about it. I'm not the biggest expert in the world, but from my understanding is that Detroit was the capital of bowling in the United States in the 1950s. You had, as you mentioned, the bowling for dollars.
That flyer there is from 1956.
Yeah.
It's a program from the ABC of bowling. People watching on Facebook. If you're not, it's just the cover
That's
of the program.
Classic,
from it,
but Detroit became an absolute mecca. And from what I understand, there was I think it was 240 bowling alleys in Detroit.
It's crazy. So it is still considered the bowling capital of the world.
Yeah.
So it's recognized Michigan as the largest in the world. A lot of other cities like to claim it, but there's over 80 bowling centers
But there was like 200,
over,
but there was like 240 at one point. There was a ton in the 50s. There was like
bowling center, yeah. And then there's 50,000 regular bowlers in the Tri-County area alone. Jumps up to 300 in
the 50s.
When you look
60s.
at the whole state, there's over 300 centers. When you look at the whole state, there's 18 different colleges that have varsity bowling teams. More than 5,000 kids compete in various high school divisions. The largest program in the country, 364 girls teams and 371 boys teams.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's just nuts. So,
but that's the thing. And again, 1935. It's rooted.
It all
exactly.
springs back to 19.
Because and it's the same thing with the teams. With these teams prior to 1935, you had. The teams were changed. You know, the Red Wings had changed their name 3 times. Mm-hmm. The NFL had tried to establish a team in the city, 3 times prior. The Tigers had never done anything. After 35, the Tigers only drawn 1 million fans once prior to 1935. Right. After 1935, the Tigers would average 1 million fans every single year thereafter. Mm-hmm. I think they only had a couple years they didn't have 1 million fans. It was only during World War II,
like this year.
Yeah, well, they'll have 1 million fans this year, believe it or not. But they, yeah, I know this year, but they
shouldn't.
But they averaged 1 million fans every year thereafter. And after this year, the Red Wings, Red Wings were the team. Their names were never going to be changed again. Detroit fans were mad, were crazy for hockey. The Lions would never change their name again. The NFL had established a firm presence in only a single year where 3 previous teams had failed. So all these examples, boxing took root here to a massive degree. All these things. Walter Hagen brought in, was the first club pro at Oakland Hills, a golf club that became, hosted numerous U.S. Opens thereafter. Right. And became, golf became a huge presence here as a result. So what I'm saying is that all these things, it's a natural, it's not that far of a leap of logic to get to the idea that this Stroh's team being part of this entire wave, especially when you have a group of players that are of this elite caliber, succeeding on the world stage in conjunction with Stroh's, which as the years would pass, Stroh's would be a major sponsor for the Tigers, the Red Wings, all sports, skiing, golf, all this. So everybody worth their salt it'd be natural that you would, like, if you're into bowling, then you would be looking up to that whatever Stroh's bowling team was the current thing in your sort of generation as you were growing up. For the people in the 30s, of course, this was their guys. But in the 40s and 50s, maybe there was a young Eddie Lubanski that kids were looking up to. And so what I'm saying is that, the legacy of this Stroh's bowling team has crossed, over the generations. Just because there's less information about them than other teams, it doesn't take you could say that it had a very similar or the same effect as the 35 season had with regards to the Red Wings or with the Lions or with the Tigers, where it is that 1 year being part of a larger story cemented those sports and cemented those teams into the city they created the foundation upon which all future growth of that sport then, thus emerged. And so absolutely, Stroh's, this is a major thing. And, we're really the first ones to bring out this team, and I'm glad to do it because, I love this squad, man. It's one of my favorite groups, one of my favorite champions here.
it's an amazing, and these amazing stories that we get to share.
I know, I love it.
We can't say it's going untold because we're telling.
We're telling it, yeah.
And it's a privilege to share this time with you.
I love it.
And share
and
these
mine
stories.
is to share with you too, man. I love doing this stuff. It's like. But it's just, but I'm just
and
glad
I love
to be able to tell
Stroh's '89 Playboy ad. So
I've
had that up there for a while. Just
hold on a second. Oh, that's
just because.
Oh, that's a Stroh's ad.
The
huh?
Stroh's,
I didn't notice the Stroh's on.
Yeah, no.
I didn't notice the Stroh's on the ad.
No, that's it.
Oh, she's holding a beer. I didn't notice that.
And she's painting the Stroh's ad on the ground.
Oh, I didn't notice that either. Sorry.
I'm 12. Really is. Pretty much how that works.
You got a year or two on me then. And I put that. And just one last thing about that image with the illustration with the bowling alley.
Yeah. That's 1901.
It's first. Like the first ABC championship. But I love that building that they're in. Mm-hmm. Like that building, it's almost like a racquetball. It's like an open air racquetball court, room. And the spectators are like looking straight down on the bowlers. Like it's such a cool. Yeah. It's only I can't see from here, but it's only a handful of lanes, And it's like they're
only
looking
4 lanes, yeah.
4 lanes, and they're like looking right down on it. Like it's like great little mini room for bowling. Like I don't know how bowling alleys are set up today, but they might want to have a look at this picture and see if they can recreate something like that. Cause that's like it's just a cool, like, to me, it's like the perfect viewing angles for watching bowling. You're like looking right down the lane.
That is. So, well, there you go. So that is our champions. That's number, 15, 13, 15?
13. Well, this is 13 on top of the 3.
The majors, yeah.
Yeah, the majors.
All right.
Well, on top of the 4, because we had the 3 plus the Olympics. No, we didn't count Joe because he didn't win it in 35.
Yeah. Wow.
So we
wow, look at you not counting Joe.
No,
I'm going to tell.
Go ahead.
You didn't
who are you going to tell?
Yeah.
But I will throw it out there to Dan. He commented
we had like
tonight.
13 episodes on Joe Louis, and he didn't.
Yeah, I will. I want to throw a tell because Dan's on the show listening. I want to throw out something.
He said he's caught up.
Is he really?
Thank you,
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. That's fantastic, man. Dan's now. So Chris has been joining us for every episode now. So is Dan. He's caught them all. This is
97 in. Thank you.
97 in, man. But anyways, I wanted to share something that Dan said to me the other day on the phone because I was talking. He's a friend of mine. He's in the stores I'm in, and Dan said something that's hilarious on the phone. And it was a joke. It was hilarious because I'm trying to struggle with call the exact wordage of it. But he says, what did he? Dan, if you remember, did you ask me if Sid Howe was related to Gordy? I think that's what he said. I think that's the way he said it. The way he said it, I was like, I couldn't believe it because he was joking with me, and he was doing it as it was a joke because he'd already knew that we don't talk about that on this show.
Yeah.
Right? We're like, don't ask me if Sid is related to Gordy, right? Don't ask me. We already made that rule. Anybody that's listening to the show, you don't ask if Sid Howe is related to Gordy. That's like we ask if Gordy's related to Sid, right, on this show. And I think he asked me if Sid was
the Bowman. Who's the Bowman?
Oh no, the Scotty Bowman. That's right. Thank you, Dan. He goes, was Scotty Bowman? Did you ask me if Scotty Bowman was related to the current coach, or did you ask the other way around? I forget.
Something like that. Yeah.
So whatever way you asked me was hilarious because I was like, no, he wasn't related, and you're like, yeah, I know, I'm just joking or something. And I was cracking up because I'm like, holy crap, dude, that's the first city.
That's like an inside joke.
It's an inside joke, and the fact that somebody's telling me it, I was like, that's friggin' awesome. We got our own sort of inside joke communication, man. So he asked me on the phone. I was like, dude, you got me with my, I was like, that's freaking awesome, Dan. I was like, because that's I'm like, dude, you are a City of Champions guy, man.
So much like Chris,
crew,
yes,
man.
Much like Chris and Dan, you can like and subscribe, and you can get caught up on all of them. And it's kind of neat because on the YouTube we got them set up in playlists, and they're chunked out. Lions.
Yeah. I gotta get
Tigers,
more. I gotta get more thumbnails done.
So we got them chunked out like that on the YouTube videos, and then we kind of go in pretty sequential order with them too. So you can hop around, and if you're a fan of the Lions, you can do that. But you got to find the other Portsmouth episodes because those have popped up here and there. When we start talking about Portsmouth, Ohio, and the Spartans.
Oh, because they pepper their way through. You know what? I need to go. I need to work on. I'm going to start working on the thumbnails
please.
For those, and maybe I'll do the backgrounds for the Ports because we always jump around with the Portsmouth.
Yeah.
We got another big update coming up with Portsmouth too because they just installed some new brass to the stadium. They just installed some new brass plates to the stadium.
We may have to make a
trip. Well, we're going there. I thought we were going there at the end of the year, hopefully to do a show. But anyways, they just installed some new brass plates into the stadium that references the City of Champions season and says, the Iron Man team, 9 of the Iron Man players played in Detroit to win their first NFL championship during the City of Champions season.
Oh, wow, right on.
They installed a plate in the stadium that recognizes that, and they just got the plate finished, and they're like texting me pictures of it, and they're like, hey,
so
check this out.
It gets recognized in Ohio, but not here.
Yes. Well, there you go. Recognized there. It's small steps, Jamie.
Detroit. Get your head out of your butt.
Tom actually said that exact same thing to me. He goes, he's like, City of Champions is being recognized, He's like, he goes, maybe only in Portsmouth right now, but it's making its way to Detroit. I'm like, Tom is always the support, like the optimist. He's like, it's going worldwide. I'm like, one step at a time.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's getting out there. I'm like, nice.
Right.
So, we're gonna check. Well, Tom may want to come back on again. We're talking about. So what I mean by mentioning that is that I want to get some of these thumbnails revised and get some little better, some more images on. And maybe for the Portsmouth ones, we'll do like a purple background so it can stand out because the Portsmouth ones just kind of pop up out of random,
sure.
because Portsmouth's our buddies, and we'd like to, every once in a while something comes up where we do something with them, and it'd be nice for that episode to stand out so people can see which ones are which.
All right, but hats off to our bowling team. Hats off to Stroh's Beer.
I want to add one last little thing.
All right, go ahead.
It's how we're ending all of these teams, these other championships, which is any team that wants to match the City of Champions season. Who are you going to face against? Who are you going to put against the Tigers? Who are you going to put against the Lions? Who are you going to put against the Red Wings? Who are you going to put against a Joe Louis? Who are you going to put against Garwood?
Right.
Okay, and even if you find somebody to match up against all those, who are you going to put? Do you have a golfer that can stand against Walter Hagen in a match?
Nope.
In a head-to-head match tournament? Who are you going to put up in a sprinting match with Eddie Tolan?
Right.
What diver do you have for Dick Degener?
Nope.
Which do you have somebody for the caber toss or any type of weight throwing championship?
Yeah.
Down and down the list. You keep matching up all these championships. It's champion, tennis, badminton. We all you keep going on the list and match champion for champion.
Who do you got for Joe Norris in the bowling team?
And now you get all if you by some miracle get to match all the way to the point where you've matched up with player for player, team for team, and now you're finally down into the pit. You're like, we got a chance to match Detroit for this City of Champions thing. Now you got to face the Stroh's bowling team. Who do you got? What team do you got to put against Stroh's bowling team?
Nope.
That's what I'm saying. That's over.
Yep.
Who do you got to face against
the
these
man
guys?
who bowled the youngest man to bowl, and again took it as the oldest person.
And then
ever
the
to bowl
oldest, like so now you got to face off against the Strohs if you're trying to win that title for greatest season in American sport history. And that's why I continue to say that the City of Champions season of 1935 was not only the greatest season to ever happen in American sport history, it is the greatest season that ever will happen.
Absolutely. All right, we'll do it again. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thank you for being with us. Truly appreciate it wherever you're at. And we'll see you next time. It's Detroit City of Champions, the podcast.